What project do we have today, huh? We have a floor jack that I got out of the dumpster. It looks brand new. It's obviously missing the handle. But other than that, quick Google search shows that this is a USA made jack. And it retails for around 800 bucks. But I think we can remedy this. Looks like we need to make the release and stuff. Maybe there's something else wrong with it. I don't know. Let's play with it. Just to give you a size comparison real fast before somebody says it's only a 2-ton. That's 4,000 pounds. This is a typical 3-ton. This is an old Craftsman. One of the nice things about a 2-ton is it lifts way faster than a 3-ton. So you don't always, if you don't need a 3-ton or 3.5-ton, it really serves you no purpose. But I mean, you can see how much bigger it is. It's a huge jack and it weighs a ton. It actually looks really well built. This is all cast. I think this would probably be cast on most, like even Chinese jacks these days. But this entire thing is cast. This entire assembly is cast, which this would probably just be welded steel on most. This is 5/16 it looks like. This would only be about a quarter. This is 1/4 inch. Actually, that might even be 3/8. This is all just 1/4 inch, typical what you see on a jack like this. But usually you wouldn't see this flange at the bottom. Usually you have this flange on the top, but most of the time I don't ever see this flange on the bottom of jacks. It was missing one bolt right here. And just so I didn't lose it, I quickly threw a bolt in right there just so the wheel didn't fall off. It's doing something weird though. There's no spring. It doesn't look like there ever was a spring. Most jacks have something that hold the handle upright. This one seems to have nothing between there and there. There's a little roller. And there's the pump for the piston. And you can see it folds down at a 45 degree before it starts pumping. I don't know if that's normal or not. It does seem to pump up. And then I just grabbed the release. Well, easier said than done. Just kind of grabbed in there. Let's loosen that off. There. And it does seem to fall. So I think this jack works. I think we're just missing a handle. Too big. Nope. Nope. Everything seems to be too big or way too small. More pipe. That's close. Over about 1/8 of an inch too small. That's gonna be sloppy. Are these? No. No. Maybe we'll grab one of these. That's the closest so far. Close. I gotta have pipe somewhere that's the right size. It's aluminum. Actually, that seems about the closest right there. I squirted that. It's only a short piece though. It just looks like galvanized water pipe. So this 18-inch, 16-inch piece fits in there nice. Very little play, but you need it to twist, so that's completely normal. I think this is just 1-inch water pipe. But this is all I have. I'm not going to Home Depot to buy a length of water pipe because I got other pipe I can attach to the end of that. Doesn't really matter. So we're going to throw this in the lathe because we have to cut a groove for it. And then we also have to weld a socket or something in the bottom to be able to access the release. But so the way these are usually retained is there's just a groove around it. And then there's a bolt down here that you screw in, and it doesn't allow you to pull it out, but allows you to twist it back and forth. Yeah, I just barely looked it up online, and that is normal for this jack. Somebody complained about it. So you're not supposed to have any movement between here and here, because I guess you're always down under the vehicle anyway, and it's optimized to give you the lift between here and here. I guess. That little hex down there appears to be 1/2 inch. Is a 1/2 inch. Yeah, so that's 1/2 inch. Okay, just a little lathe info. When you're looking for your first lathe, this was my first, you don't think about some things like the pass-through hole. This has a teeny pass-through hole, so I can't push the pipe in any further than that. Because you can only work, you can only, without any support, or maybe you could work about, you know, 6-8 inches out, depending on how big and rigid the part is. But you can't machine down here with it sticking in there. So usually you pass it through the backside, and there's a hole all the way out here. But this one is teeny. That's, you know, maybe 3/4 of an inch, maybe a little bit bigger. Anyway, and I don't have enough bed length. Anyway, so I'm going to weld a handle to it anyway, so we're just going to chop it down to a reasonable amount. Probably 8 inches or something, and just use that. The annoying thing is I'm sitting here machining this, and I look down and I have a piece of pipe that I've already played around with, which is the exact same size that I need, and probably about, it's a little bit longer, but the length that I just ready to cut off a bigger piece. Sitting right here next to the lathe is just a scrap. I don't like that little bit of play. I think there's just a little too much slop, so I'm just going to put maybe a couple weld beads, just a couple spot welds around here and down here, and then I'll just throw it back in the lathe, and it'll be just a little bit oversized, and it'll take out that little bit of slop, because I think that's going to, you know, 1/8 of an inch here, it was going to be 1 inch at the top. Now I'll just knock most of that off, so it just sticks above the surface just barely. It's not much. It's like 10/1000ths around the sides, but that took out all the play, so perfect. So I found this socket, a no-name brand, and that fits on there. That sounds good. So it just has to stick out about 1/2 inch, and we can just weld it around in there, center it, and weld it. Thin wall PVC and 3 wraps of blue painter's tape. That centers it perfectly. Put a tack weld, and I'll just pull the PVC out, and the painter's tape can just live in there. I left one little hole in case water slides down in there. You can see it down there, and it won't build up around the socket and rust jack, and you know, so yep, it works. And then release. So I got these pipes that are nice and thick. They actually fit over the outside of that, but I'd have to weld 2 of them together because they're short. This one looks a little bit thinner, but it's been hammered on the end, and it feels like it's full of either concrete or dirt. I can't tell, so it feels super heavy, so I can't gauge exactly how thick it is. So I've got to clean that out, and then we'll see how thick it is. I guess I'll run a piece of rebar or something through it. That was insane how well that's packed in there. There we go. This is how long to make the handle. I guess I'll just make it. Here's an older Sears one. Just set it there. Guess we'll just make it the same. Looks like it goes about 48 inches off the ground. So this pipe will fit directly over that. We'll just space it up 1/8 of an inch or so, maybe a little bit more, and I'll just weld around the outside of that after I get it centered nicely, because we want it as centered as possible. Otherwise, if it's leaning and you go to rotate this handle, it'll do that instead of just spinning. But so we take this, I put a couple holes so we can do some plug welds, and it is duct tape a little bit sloppy, so we'll take some aluminum because this is going to have to stay in there. And we can just weld right through it for our plug welds. Seems about right. Okay, there we go. I just made the world's longest 1/2 inch extension. You just put a pipe wrench on this side, and you can tighten a 1/2 inch bolt from 1/2 mile away. So that'll just slide in. And this will screw in and retain it. I have to put a washer on there because it bottoms out about right there. So otherwise you pinch it in there, but that makes sense. It stands upright. It actually is meant to rest at probably about a, I don't know, 10-degree angle forward. But then if you just drop it, it'll just drop down to roughly 45. And then it starts jacking. It's not the slowest, but it's also not the fastest. It's just a single action. And then we twist it and drop it. Seems to work. Let's paint the handle. Looking at the one online, the ones I see online, they're the same, they're yellow. So I was just gonna paint this black because it's easy, but I guess we gotta paint it yellow. Then we gotta make a hand grip for it. I've done this before on videos. I have huge heat shrink tubing that I can just slide over there and just kind of fold it in. And that'll work, but I think I'm gonna try to 3D print a handle. I'm gonna go see if I can find one and just 3D print a handle just to slide over there. So I don't have the exact color, but I'll show you what I do sometimes. I spray paint a ton. I have two colors that are kind of in between. Generally I would spray the darker color on, and then, because I need a color right between these, put the darker color on, then the lighter color, just mist it over the top, and it'll kind of blend them a little bit. It's not flawless, but this is going to be more translucent than this. So if you want a good adhesion and no paint defects, one of the best things you can do is a mist coat like this. I need a way to grab that. I'm not left-handed. And let that set up and tack up. And even if you have an oily or greasy surface, a lot of times that'll bite through it and you'll be able to move on. I'll even take the torch and I'll torch it off real fast. Sometimes it flames up, so you gotta be careful. But this also heats up the part, makes everything dry faster. Now I'll put on, now it's dry in areas. Now we can put on a little bit more, start covering up stuff. Run that up. Rotate the nozzle. It's a little oranger, just barely. So this is where I take my yellow, my lighter color. Well, it's still kind of wet. Hold it back at least like a foot or so. A decent amount. We're just misting it. This is way lighter. And that's an impromptu way to kind of blend colors. You got to do it when they're both wet, because then they kind of meld together. What do you think, old yeller? Well, you got a bandage on your foot. Come here. Come here. And you got a big old wound on the side of your face because you've been chasing the dog back and forth on the other side of the house. We don't care. We just like plow through everything at 1,000,000 miles per hour. There is no slow speed with this dog. So we end up getting a little bit hurt sometimes. Usually we're pretty good, but we got ourselves good the other day. Let's let that paint dry, and then we can do something. Where's your frisbee? Bring me a frisbee, come on. Bring me something. Not a 3D printing tutorial, but essentially, you just go to a bunch of different, there's a website called Thingiverse, there's a couple different ones. And you just find somebody that, for most stuff, you can just find something that you like. And this is something that this guy made. I have no idea who he is. Download the file. You import it into your printing software. I had to scale it up just so the inside would fit over the pipe that I'm using. And then I just print it out. And I got a part for roughly about $1. That's one thing that people never say. Is this about a $1 part? And I could probably find one for $8 off Amazon. Maybe. Maybe not. Having a custom size, That's where 3D printing comes in a little bit handy, but we'll see. Prints away, and hopefully it's the right size. It's a little undersized, so I'll see if we can stretch it over this. I'm using a material called TPU, which is kind of flexible, rubbery, but not like a ton. So we'll see. That's the biggest cost and time consuming thing with 3D printing, is just printing it over and over and over and over to get it the right size. A little bit of stringing over here. Let's get it out of there. There we go. Just finished up. Nope. There we go. There we go. That looks nice. The paint makes it too thick to fit in there. There we go. Take off the paint off those high surfaces. I put 2 little washers behind this. Nope. Perfect. Put some grease in there and should be good. Ready to go. Okay. I don't know. This is how it's supposed to be. I looked it up online, where the handle is supposed to go to here and just rest and not jack up. Which I guess I can see. I've never had a jack that has done this. Everything jacks from here to here. But I've also had the issue when you're pushing it out to the vehicle, you know, especially if you're pushing it out to a low car, just you moving it from here to here, you've already raised it up enough that you have to actually release it down again and then move it back up. But it is meant to be one of these jacks that you lift under and then you pump it up. So let's throw it under the truck. Let's see if it can lift 3,000 pounds or so. Yeah, that's up. Actually, no problem at all. Lift up both axles. Both tires, I mean. Get it right there. Catch it right on the side of the diff. I can lift both. There we go. That should be around. Oh, we don't cut that one off yet. Now we do. That should be around 3,000 pounds right there. I'm just gonna let it sit there, see if it holds it up. I don't see why not. I'm assuming. Well, if you've watched this long, I'll give you the whole story. Essentially, Advanced Auto Parts was going out of business around me. A couple of them, not all of them, maybe like a third of them. And I went by one afternoon, middle of the day, just to see if they were still open, and they had closed. And I saw they had a big dumpster, so I started looking in the dumpster, saw a couple things, started grabbing them, and I guess the manager came out and he said, "Hey, what are you doing? Are you throwing stuff?" People are more concerned that you're putting stuff in their dumpster than you're taking stuff out. And he's like, "Oh, I got some other stuff you might be interested in as well that I was getting ready to throw away." And one of them was that jack. And essentially, he said he had no idea. It had been there since before he started at that location. Gave me a bunch of car batteries. Gave me a bunch of other stuff. Like oil absorb. I have a little short video on it. A shorts video. But essentially, I got a free jack, which is, I think Granger sells it for like anywhere between $600 and $800 jack. That I'm assuming a customer bought, like special ordered, and then returned, or it got delivered without the handle, and like it just sat there and tried to order a handle, you know, or order a handle. So that's the story behind it, but it seems to work just fine. So I now have another jack. So how much wobble was I able to keep in there? That's how much wobble. It's not bad. There we go. I have a whole video on restoring that one, or rebuilding the entire cylinder, everything else. I have a whole video on restoring this exact same model right here, this Craftsman, for the neighbor. That one I have a little video on because it was free and the handle was just stuck. It's just a shorts. I now have a video on that one. I have one more jack, but I don't want to get that out. One more of these. My favorite is this Nike Coats. Right there. This has become my main go-to, and kind of retired these two, but now this one, I don't even know. How many jacks do you guys have? Okay, I think it's leaking right there. Serious. Oh, hold the flashlight still. Come on. I know. It's harder than it looks. Okay. Come on. Let me see under there. Let's see. You're not doing a good job. No, over there. Aim it that way. Right there. Nope. Let's go inside.